make some initial remarks and hand it over to the next speaker. UNICEF stands here as a common partner with common goals based on the shared belief that when the power of innovation is approached to be inclusive, we can harness the power of our greatest asset in the fight against poverty, young people. UNICEF has been in the fortunate position to witness firsthand the level of innovation coming from many sectors of the development cycle, and have identified, tested, scaled innovation from all over our organization. And we notice that many of these innovations have one thing in common. They come from people, not necessarily experts in a particular field or Ivy League educated scientists. They have come from normal people trying to find a simple solution to major problems affecting them. To be here at the Festival of Innovations with the National Institute of Innovation and the Honeybee Network embracing these values gives us great pride. Innovation has challenged how large organizations such as ourselves approach the problem we're trying to solve. Innovation is not a linear journey. It's a journey that embraces new solutions to serve a need. And for UNICEF, these solutions have to be at scale. India, a country of more than 1 billion people, understands the needs for scale more than most, and is undertaking some of the most ambitious, scalable, innovative projects the world's ever seen, not the least with the Smart Cities program. What role can citizens of India play in the development? Well, it's a fundamental and critical one. We've seen in the rise of social networks, some who have user populations larger than India and China, not only a willingness to share, but a need for people to share, a need to achieve our development. UNICEF is pleased to see the progress is being made in India and to play a part in it. Srishti and the Honeybee Network have been practicing inclusive innovation for quite some time. Srishti is an example of an organization that doesn't just say it, they do it. Reaching the most disadvantaged children by providing tools for access to information, opportunity, and choice means that these future consumers, scientists, creators, and citizens will be better prepared to shape the world around them. Reaching the most disadvantaged communities effectively means listening to them about their needs. They know more about their communities than anyone. That means putting communities at the heart of solutions, enabling them to participate, talking, listening, and eating what they say. How do we reach all children? Hear their voices. Hear the voices of those in rural communities or in conflict zones. New approaches, new technology, and new ways of thinking, and also by using existing technologies in a new way. UNICEF and partners have developed U-Report. U-Report's a simple, low-cost system which enables real-time communication between young people throughout the country and their decision makers. U-Report works over SMS on a basic mobile phone, but it also has an app for smartphones and connects Twitter and other social platforms. Over 2 million young people in 18 countries are voicing their opinion on violence and exploitation at school, access to learning resources, and much-needed improvement. This makes young people not only recipients of services, but architects of their future. For example, in Liberia, we heard rumors that students were being exploited for sex in return for grades. We polled more than 60,000 Liberian U-Reporters and asked them if they think sex for grades is a problem. And within a few days, we learned that 86% of those 13,000 respondents says plainly yes. With this information, we're able to work with the Ministry of Education, set up helpline, and provide these students with a safe way to report their issue. With new innovations and technology across platform, every field is beneficiary from its adoption. Research have shown that ICT, information communication technology, can lead improved student learning and better teaching methods. These new ways of teaching and learning are changing the paradigm from teachers-centered pedagogy to one that is centered around the learner. In the context of India, Right to Free and Compulsory Education Act, there is a need to explore methodologies and solutions, several of them ICT-enabled, to facilitate inclusion in an educational setup. Realizing the potential of ICT for expanding reach and quality, the Indian government has undertaken several initiatives, and a couple of programs are being evaluated for scale-up in partnership with UNICEF, fostering inclusion, participation, and leveraging information and communication technology. Non-technical approaches that we've also taken to empower youth to be change agents in their communities is through a program called By Youth for Youth. This program helps youth to transform their social impact ideas into actionable projects, providing young leaders with first-hand experience developing and implementing projects, programs, and social ventures. By Youth for Youth acts as a pre-incubator, bridging the gap between ideas and sustainable, impactful projects by providing funding, equipment, offices, and learning opportunities for capacity building through training and mentorship. It was created by our Innovation Lab in Kosovo, and the elements of this program are also being replicated in other countries around the world. UNICEF recently launched its first call for application to its Innovation Fund, enabling tech startups from developing countries to apply for investment that can help them create open-source technology-based solutions that will improve the lives of children. We know that there are amazing solutions out there, and we also know that we cannot find them on our own. So we need to build a global set of new thinkers and problem solvers who can connect and share complementary solutions. We also created the fund so that we can move faster. By creating this global community, we now have ideas that can scale further. And in the first round, we received over 650 applications from more than 90 countries. In 2015, we used the fund to invest in solutions coming from UNICEF program countries and partners. For instance, in collaboration with the Peking University School of Life Science and other China-based partners, we've developed and launched an application specifically designed to help children with autism that have difficulties in speech. So more information is available on the UNICEF website. And this application is now available in multiple operating systems in Chinese and in English. So this gives you an example, an idea around the work that's being done and the very good alignment that's required between innovation in an education setting. Thank you for listening, and UNICEF is very happy to be part of this, and we look forward to closer relationship and collaboration. Thank you very much. So I will now pass the microphone to Mrs. Vivian Stern. Thank you.
I'd like to start by thanking Professor Gupta for the opportunity to be part of this really quite impressive gathering on a topic which I think is fascinating. And I think picking up on some of the themes which emerged from the discussion we had already today, I want to start by talking about creativity in education. And although my field is higher education, I want to start with schools because I think that from the very early years, it is important that we foster a way of learning which encourages students, school children, to think about problems in a creative way. I don't just mean using the creative disciplines, arts and performance and other forms of creative learning. I mean that our education system should be built around an approach to problem solving, problem-based learning. And although I can't speak with any authority on it as a policy topic, I am the mother of two very small children, and I see them going through primary school. And in the UK, we have a early years curriculum which is structured around play-based learning. So the approach to mathematics and literacy and personal and social development is, in the very early years, it's all delivered through play-based learning. By 5 years old, that's beginning to be squeezed out by something which is much more didactic, much more about absorb and regurgitate. And I know that actually the UK compares relatively favourably with some other systems in the extent to which we manage to retain an element of play-based learning,
of creative education. And you can see it throughout the early years curriculum in the approach to topic-based learning. So, for example, in exploring topics in history or science or in literature through project work. And when you move into the university sector, I think over the last 10 to 15 years, the thinking about how best to inculcate the skills which graduates will need in order to thrive in their postgraduate lives has been really shifting towards an understanding that giving those students access to problems and opportunities to work in groups to solve them is really quite critical to producing graduates who are not just full of knowledge, but actually full of capabilities to apply that knowledge to solving problems which they are unlikely to have come across before. And I think that's very important. But I think we should recognise that children are born with an instinct to ask why, and they are born with an absolute determination to challenge, and we sort of squeeze it out of them. And I think in our policy we should be thinking about how we can continue to encourage the desire to challenge and to ask why, not only in the early years curriculum, but right through to university. In the UK, there has been a desire driven by government policy to bring together the university sector with the industry and public sector actors who are likely to employ the graduates of our universities and to make use of the ideas which they generate. And I think there again, there is some very useful material from which we can learn and on which we can build. So for example, in the UK, we have had a number of policy tools which have encouraged universities to work closely with industry. And I think earlier somebody mentioned two things, both monitoring and incentives, and the policy tools have been built around those, I think those twin pillars, financial incentives,
reputational incentives, but also monitoring, asking universities to report on what they're doing with public sector and industry partners and community partners. And I think that has driven a change in approach. But it's also had a very important knock-on effect for curriculum, because as well as developing research which is relevant to the problems which industry or the public sector or community groups face, universities have also increasingly involved representatives of those sectors in the design of curriculum and in the formation of content, so that students have access to real-world problems, to examples, for example, in the business sector of small businesses struggling to make the leap from micro to the sort of medium-sized business, and giving students the opportunity to put into practice some of the things that they've learned in a practical way. I think that alongside that, the development, not only in the UK but all over the world, of science parks, of incubation centres, of innovation centres is important, and we should encourage it. Because, as we've also heard, I think, so far today, there is something enormously powerful about creating networks of people who are unlike each other. And in the incubation and innovation centres which exist in many of the universities in the UK, students, including and graduate students, postgraduate students, and small and medium-sized enterprises co-located in a very small physical space with architecture which encourages exchange of ideas, has produced really fantastic results and has encouraged an increase in, for example, graduate startups and entrepreneurship. But there's been another factor which I think is often overlooked. In the UK, as in many other countries, we've suffered what in the context of some other countries is a relatively minor economic shock. But from 2011 onwards, we really had a period in which there was an intense focus on preparing graduates for a difficult labour market in which it was harder than it had ever been before to get jobs. One of the things that happened as a result of that, particularly in a university sector in which fees are charged, was that universities thought very hard about how they were going to demonstrate to their students that they were doing the very best they could to prepare them for the world of work afterwards. And entrepreneurship became an important topic. You saw entrepreneurship summer camps, you saw features of entrepreneurial thinking being brought into curriculum right across the range of subjects. And that hasn't gone away. In fact, I think that is something which we will see growing over time. And one of the observations I will make is that in a period in which graduates find it more difficult to get jobs, they're much more likely to take the risk of starting their own company. And that may not, in more benign circumstances, be their first choice. But the appetite for risk is something that we should encourage and support, even as the economic circumstances get better. I think the final thing I want to say is that Eric Zimmerman this morning said something about the value of collaboration with people who are different from ourselves. And I think that we have an enormous opportunity to collaborate across national boundaries and learn a lot from each other about how distinct challenges are being fostered. I think what India is doing in terms of grassroots innovation is unmatched in the world. And I think that making connections between, for example, our strengths in the UK around education for entrepreneurship, the connections between universities and business, the innovation ecosystem which we're beginning to develop in the UK, and those brilliant ideas which could provide solutions to many of our problems as well as India's problems. That's something that we should keep very firmly in mind. And I think, Professor Gupta, your challenge to us is to make this more than a conversation, that by the end of this there should be some ideas about how we could formalise something that will lead to something happening in the world. And my suggestion, we now have, many of our countries have funding mechanisms to support cooperation and research. In the UK we have a scheme called UKERI, and it has fostered partnerships between UK universities and Indian universities around innovation. There's one example around low-cost systems for malaria diagnosis. There's another example which is around bringing together potential entrepreneurs with potential mentors. And I think that our focus should be on using those funding mechanisms to formalise exchange between people who have ideas and people who have some knowledge about how to turn idea into a viable business or a viable product or service, and people who have the capital to support that very fragile stage between the development of the idea and the scaling up of it. So I think developing a program around that, which might be multilateral, not just bilateral, would be worth exploring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stern. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Ritter, Managing Director at Knowledge Dialogues in Hong Kong.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm have been asked to co-chair the session also, and I wanted to turn your attention a little bit to our ideas on innovation policies. I'm a member in the New Club of Paris, and which is a do tank for knowledge societies. And many of you may know about the new Club of Rome, which was about the unlimited natural resources. And the new Club of Paris is about the unlimited resource of human knowledge. So, and if we keep that in mind, that the human knowledge is an unlimited resource, it cannot be exhausted, then maybe we need to ask the question, how well are our innovation policies at the moment really tapping into that resource and make it possible to really use this resource? And in a way, I think most innovation policies of countries are still tapping into a rather narrow aspect of the minds of the people that they have. And in many countries, innovation policy is still like tech policy. So that has changed a little bit. They have maybe a small department for social innovation or so on, but very few national innovation policies are close to the education department, for instance. It's always separated, and they don't talk to each other. So if we talk about inclusive innovation development, shouldn't there be also more conversation between those who look at technological, economical innovation as well as human learning and knowledge creation? So that I think there's a kind of a disconnect in many countries. And also, perhaps the focus is in traditional innovation policies is still very much on transactional-driven idea on knowledge generation. That means we invest in innovation because we believe it's good for the GDP, we believe it's good for growth, and we can measure it in patterns and all kind of indicators. The OECD has a lot of guidance on that and so on. But there's also, by focusing only on this transactional innovation, we miss out on the social innovation and so on. And the New Club of Paris, we are trying to bring this together and call this societal innovation. That means we also need to somehow question the paradigms on what we do when we say we set up an innovation system. And if we don't put the human learning and knowledge at the core of our innovation policies, it will always be too narrow. And I want to give you an example. Now, in many countries, also in India, there are these smart city programs, which are very often driven by innovation policies and tech companies. But big data, Internet of Things, and so on. If we leave this whole sector only to the technology-driven innovators, it will be a nightmare. It will be surveillance and control and so on. But if we include citizen and citizen-driven and user-driven innovation, it could really make a big change. For instance, when we look at traffic, the IT companies have a lot of solutions that make it easier for intelligent traffic system, all kind of sensors that make the movement of traffic flow easier in the cities. But nobody addresses the question on access to mobility for everyone. How do we also use technology to make it easy for people to walk in cities? That would be an innovation question that very few tech innovation-driven thinkers address, because walkers, pedestrians, don't come up in their picture. So that's just an example on why I think we really need to talk about societal innovation. Societal innovation that asks, what is innovation for? How do we really build an inclusive system where everybody can contribute with their knowledge and get heard? And that's quite difficult. And as the previous speaker just said, it would be really much more about real-world problems. Many organizations or many countries also talk now about citizen-driven innovation, quadruple helix, which actually means going away from the simple public-private partnerships to PPP models, where you have public, private, and citizen involved. That's also the new model that OECD and many other international organizations propose. But in reality, this is still quite difficult because there is no natural exchange, and setting up these platforms and these coordination mechanisms in society where such collaboration can really work for the benefit of addressing big issues. We have only a few examples in very small, in some sectors. So it is really a big challenge for us to create innovation systems that include the voices of all sectors in society. And maybe we are, in that case, still at the very beginning. I think there is some really good examples from Scandinavian countries who generally have less borders of authority between these different societal groups, and there are, of course, also great examples from India. But then very often also the grassroots innovation is separated from the innovation that comes out from the high-tech innovation groups in society. So I think there's a lot of work to do. And maybe with this, I hope that we can have some more discussion on how we bring the transactional, focused idea generation and the needs-driven knowledge creation in our societies together, and also create these mechanism of conversation, dialogue, exchange that really create an impact in whichever country you are coming from. Yes, with this I want to close my very short remarks, and I hope we can discuss further later. Thank you very much. Okay, may I announce the next speaker? Yeah. The next speaker will be Mark Pransky. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know that you've had your tea, but you're probably looking for something else. Let me begin by thanking Professor Gupta. I am a little bit of an accidental attendee at this conference. It is only because the very wise Professor Gupta noticed that I was speaking somewhere else in Hyderabad next week that he invited me to attend this conference. And I'm very pleased to be here. I believe in what you're doing, and I've learned a lot. So thank you. And now let me tell you what I really think. There are huge elephants missing, and elephants is probably appropriate because this is India, from this room. And they are young people, is the first one, is the first elephant that's missing. Suppose everybody at this conference had brought with them the smartest teenager they knew. And we all, the adults, sat in the back and let the teenagers have the discussion. Do you think it would be the same discussion? I don't at all. Now, I used to work for Boston Consulting Group and other places, and I think about the world differently. Innovation is very interesting, but it's a means to an end. And we have to think about what that end is. That end has to be the positive end of improving the world, because there are some innovations that don't do that at all. The improvised explosive device in Iraq is certainly an innovation, but it's not a positive one. So we have to think about, and the word that I want to focus on more than anything else is accomplishment. Because we don't focus our kids on accomplishment. And I want to go back to the story of the young lady who has that wonderful exhibit, and I met her and I thought she was terrific, about the different levels of water fountain. Now, here's the story that we talked about. A year ago, they had a competition. She entered. She was one of the 6,000 chosen, and then narrowed down, and along the way somebody built this prototype that's nicely on the wall, and now she's won and she's in the exhibit. Well, that's a year. Has anything happened? I asked her, is this implemented? No. What could have happened? What would I think should have happened if we were the kind of innovative society we want to be? I think she had that idea. It's a great idea. We sent the plans out, or the idea out, to every school in India, and in 1 month, the kids in India had built those water fountains in every school in India. That's what we have to do. We have to teach our kids to accomplish. We don't have to put them through just problem solving and the whys and all this. How many people in this room know Vinoba Bhave? Many of you do. He was a close collaborator of Gandhi. And one of his quotes that I think is so important is, education is a byproduct of practical work. We have to get our kids to accomplish, starting at the very early ages. College is already late to begin doing that. And there are so many ways, they are so innovative. When we choose 2 kids out of a school, we say, oh, we're going to have 2, we're going to have kids submit ideas and choose 2 kids from each school. What we are saying is, all the rest of your kids are not innovators, those ideas don't matter. That's not what we want to say. What we want to say is every single one of you has dreams, has ideas, go in and show you how to accomplish those ideas. If you have an idea for the big cart, we're not going to send it to the innovation labs to build it. We're going to come down and help you build it. Because until our young people realize that they are the innovators, that they are the accomplishers, that they can do this, we won't get the changes that we want. And the most important thing is that our kids are so empowered compared to us. Because they have these tools, because, as we heard, they will all have smartphones, they will all be networked, they all have what I call extended brains all networked together. They're going to be able to do these things. We have to turn around and give them the permission and the tools and the opportunity to do this stuff. That's where it has to begin, in kindergarten, in the primary schools, in the secondary schools, so that by the time people get to the universities and colleges, they know how to do this stuff. All they'll do is do it better and learn how to do it better. So we have all these kids. I love what you are doing with Kids for Kids. We have to get that to every single kid. We have so many untapped opportunities. And I'll close with the doctor who talked about how we have to include the half the world that's women. Well, half the world is under 25. We have to include that half of the world in our innovation, get them going. We, sitting around this table, are all very nice people and very smart people, but we're the past. Those kids are our future. And if we don't get them started innovating and accomplishing at a very early age, we will not succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass it to Professor Darwin.
Dear Honorable Chairman, I would like to thank you and the Honorable President of India for inviting the Haas School of Business, University of California at Berkeley, to the most celebrated Global Innovation Roundtable at Rashtrapati Bhavan. I would also like to thank my friend and colleague, Dr. Anil Gupta, who is the spirit behind this great event. I teach business models in emerging economies at Berkeley. I also teach another famous class that's more popular these days, Building Smart Cities. Half my students are engineers and the other half are business majors. I also teach another course called IBM Watson, Cognitive Computing, how you can monetize that asset that sits in the cloud, available 24/7, that processes 200 million records per second, available to everyone around the planet. How do you monetize that? So those are the courses that I teach. Most of my students are India-marked. They're all undergrads. That's where innovation comes from. MBAs are useless in this. Usually they have a lot of baggage. They cannot think out of the box. I would like to share a few thoughts about some of the problems with our educational system as it relates to social economic impacts, entrepreneurship, and business opportunities among rural populations around the world, with a particular focus on India. I'm more interested in the nature of delivery and access of basic education to the rural communities. I would like to draw your attention to the key problems based on our research and offer some possible solutions that some of our Berkeley colleagues are trying to pivot. I grew up in a small village in Andhra Pradesh. Back then, it was a clean, peaceful place full of hardworking people. I left my village as a teenager to the United States along with my dad, who was offered a position as a scientist at the University of California, San Diego. I had returned to my village many times to find that there had been little or no improvement since then. In many ways, things got worse. The canals that I once used to swim and fish in are full of pollutants and plastic waste along with the animal and human excretions. The roads are more crowded with autos and buses and a lot of noise and air pollution. Despite the number of schools that have come up in the area, including the one I started, there's a high level of unemployment in the youth. I noticed that year after year, the farmers stopped growing their crop as costs exceeded revenues, and the suicide rate among them has gone up. Many who left the village to the Middle East to earn a better living through menial labor offered no incentive to the families back home to work or improve their lives. Many suffer from ailments of addiction and free spending. I was told by my Chinese colleagues at Berkeley that the same is true in villages in China with migrant workers. Close to 70% of our Indian population still lives in villages. There are close to 650,000 villages in India and over 1 million villages in China. Based on the survey done by my students at UC Berkeley, validated by a prior survey done by AP government, Andhra Pradesh government, the basic necessities like water and food security, waste disposal, education, healthcare, complicated by high level of corruption at every level, are major issues. It is ironic that there have been many new advances in technology, new business model innovations, and knowledge has exponentially grown since I left my village as a teenager. All this progress did not offer much benefit to the rural population where most of the people in India live. Our educational systems have failed us. They have not kept up in sync with the landscape that has changed since the industrial era. Education is all about the flow of knowledge, access to knowledge. Knowledge has to flow to have value. Knowledge gives humans the power of invention and innovation to explore opportunities to create value for themselves. Knowledge is useless unless it flows. Technology is useless unless it has relevant business models. Information is useless unless it is accompanied by cognitive computing to add value these days. Knowledge, once it's created, it becomes a social good to benefit the society across silos. Knowledge has a dark side to it if it is held captive by the privileged class of few. Then inequity and injustice reign. Our solutions to provide on the table comes from open innovation. At UC Berkeley, we are firm believers in open innovation, a concept that goes against the base human nature to share, adapt, and embrace change. UC Berkeley is the home of open innovation. The word was coined by Professor Henry Chesborough, whose research and work has been internationally recognized and applied. Open innovation was first conceived in technology development, where entities and organizations are benefited by sharing and exchanging knowledge. This concept is now being applied across the board in business models, services, and marketing, and the entire supply chain to capture value. We are seeing it increasingly applied in the development of public policy, creation of smart cities, and now smart villages. Closed innovation seeks to hold knowledge captive and treat it like a stock on the balance sheet, while open innovation seeks to facilitate free flow of knowledge, breaking down silos, tightening the weakest links, and relieving bottlenecks. Open innovation is not merely soliciting and benefiting from other people's ideas. It is a two-way street. Both the giver and the receiver have value to exchange. Knowledge flows both ways, creating a strategic advantage both for the giver and the receiver in creating sustainable ecosystems. Increasingly, organizations that have embraced open innovation are doing much better in the Silicon Valley and flourishing in this landscape. Now, back to the open innovation as a solution to Indian villages through relevant ecosystems. We do not find vast majority of people in the villages wanting to earn graduate degrees or PhDs. What they desire is just enough education or information to help themselves. That is, what is needed is the basic educational system that is just good enough, made available to the rural population to empower them, enable their natural abilities to improve their own lives and the lives of those that surround them. 2 pain points were highlighted in a survey performed by our students among the cross-section of villagers who have a zeal to improve their standard of living in their village. Number 1, lack of access to correct information to create value for themselves. Lack of information, period. Number 2, lack of simple tools or basic training that will enable them to get there. This was further complicated by high level of corruption that lacks transparency at all levels, that seem to be a bottleneck and the weakest links in the system that prevent those who are willing to improve themselves cannot. A farmer who is processing cashews in my village wants to know how he could package them and put them on internet and make it available to the world. He is looking for a simple, straightforward answer. He wants to know how he could register his business and get a license to export, whom to partner with, and how to lower his costs to create value to the consumers that he's selling to, the end consumers. A lady in my village who earns only $10 by weaving a sari on her vintage handloom machine wants to know how she could put her inventory on internet. She is tired of the government set price of $10 for her sari that takes a whole month to weave. Many of my friends in America feel $100 per sari is a steal for a beautiful crafted hand-woven cotton sari. She needs information and tools to do this. It is this kind of education that is lacking and is most needed in the 650,000 villages to bring about justice and equity in the system. Last semester, I challenged my students to only utilize frugal technologies, but efficient ones, in making Vizag smart, the first village being built in Andhra Pradesh as a smart city. The Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh was impressed by the work of my students. He said, building a few smart cities is good, but building 1,000 smart villages is much better. It gives a bigger bang to the GDP by the virtue of economies of scale and economies of scope. This semester, I'm teaching that course. I said to him that smart villages are very doable in this age, and there's no need for heavy infrastructure, and digital tools are essentially free. Technology is already here that will promote transparency, speed of transactions, and real-time communication, and most importantly, all costs are eliminated, and there are time savings from the entire ecosystem. Recently, I was appointed by the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh to be the Chief Innovation Officer, and gave me this first job to develop a prototype in a real place in India. This kind of a project calls your help around this table to help me, to help Berkeley, and Berkeley is being helped by many of the senior executives of large companies like IBM, Cisco, and Tyco. And what we need is enablement, empowerment, exchange, experimentation, and encouragement for true learning to take place. And in the spirit of open innovation, I welcome all of you around this table to help me by contributing your knowledge flows to my students at Berkeley. And the deadline is December 27th, and I hope that we can stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll turn it over to Professor Lian.
Good afternoon, Dr. Mashaka, Professor Anil-Gupta, and Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to share 3 points. One is to promote the inclusive innovation we need to focus on the innovation application or innovation diffusion. Therefore, I suggest we need to have a platform. Actually, it's a website. To let the grassroots innovation meet the demand of the poor. So this process can be done through the keywords matching. So that is the first point. You see, in this platform, actually, in the past we have a database of grassroots innovation. Even in China, this database is quite big. India also, this is a huge one. So for this database, we just to add some keywords for each innovation. I mean, that's from one end. Another end is the demand of the poor. In the past, from Chinese end, actually, we did not do much on this end. Just now, Professor Anil Gupta mentioned that, your keys already, started the sorting of the demands of the poor. And also, for the demands of the poor, suppose we give the keywords. The platform automatically to match the demand and the supply. So after that, we go to the second stage. So that's the first point. And the second point, for this platform or for this website, actually can be expanded. One is, of course, that should be a national one. Because lots of organizations, lots of people, I mean, from the government to NGOs and to the university. So many people, so many organizations, they are interested in that. And, those people can use this website. That is one. And also, that can become an international one. Now, since in each country, actually, we have lots of foreign students study in the universities. For those foreign students, they can play the role just like our own students. So that can be easily make this website become a international one, as a bilingual one, a multilingual one, sorry. And another thing, for this, to expand this website is, now one is innovation, one is demand. Actually, we can also involve other partners, like the people who want to contribute to the value addition. Some companies, they want to do that. So some organizations, they want to do the innovation diffusion. So more partners can be involved in this website. So that's the second point. This website can be expanded. And the third point, education, including the university, college, and the schools. So, I mean, mainly the students, also the faculty. They should play the key role in this process because, the students, that's a huge number, and also they are scattered everywhere. Grassroots innovation is everywhere. The demand of the poor is everywhere, and also it's quite different. So historically or naturally, the student should play a key role in that, because that will be, to reduce the cost, and also we can get more information. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone's contribution. We have roughly 30 minutes. I would ask that you keep your remarks under 3 minutes to start with, and we'll reduce that as the half hour goes by. I like the last suggestion. It reminded me of the setup of a LinkedIn environment for innovation, where you can match skills with people looking for connections and to realize value. So there was a very interesting comment that made me reflect on that. But we've heard a lot across the people who spoke, how to reach the lower part to get the voice of everyone, children and those that are in challenged communities. I like the instinct of children to ask why and let them continue to challenge, to involve them, to not only focus on the transactional innovation, but how do we bring the social innovation, the social change. Innovation as a means to an end, focusing on the accomplishment. These are all key messages. Open innovation and the famous LinkedIn database that we can link the world from innovation to demand to schools. So this is a summary of the last 3 minutes or so. But I'll turn it over to whoever wants to make some remarks, either on this content or any other remarks that we might not have touched on. Please go ahead and raise your hand.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just need to share with you our experience in Arab Science and Technology Foundation.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
Okay, of course, yeah. I just need to share with you our experience in Arab Science and Technology Foundation, which is NGO non-profit organization funded in 2000 to support science and technology and innovation in the Arab region. And we start with the thought with the professor of university that innovation and science and technology is only in academic area or with the people with high educations. And later on, we found that the innovation and science and technology coming from all the community. For that, for last year, we make initiative for Egypt, especially for Egypt, for youth, to empower them to innovate and to complete a small ecosystem. As you mentioned, we need to accomplish, and we do this in Egypt now. We make an initiative for all the community. We have no one zero value. Even child, even retired person, it's important for us. So make this initiative for all people inside Egypt, and we asked His Highness, the President of Egypt, to give us the patronage to go for the government and the schools and university and open the doors for us. And we start the idea that we ask people to innovate and give us innovation solution for Egyptian problems. But the main target use natural resources. So they understand their natural resource and to attach to the land. Our main target to mention to them, your country is not rich, not poor, you are a rich country. So use resources and innovate. And we make a training for them, and they make a small festivals in every governorate and tell people your resources, your history, your innovation idea, and people met from university, from schools, from businessmen, from diplomatic people, discussion the issue, and the 3 winners go for another stage, but the other people, we train them to how to make business plan, because all people have a good idea, but they cannot present it in front of people to invest in this. So we train them, and they mentioned you have to return back and start the cycle again with a new innovation, with new business plan. And the other 3 winners go for a higher stage until the winner will be from all Egypt and from all sectors, any place. Maybe it's woman in housewife, any place, and then they take money, not only money, but will incubate them inside another system. For this, we get three companies from Egyptian innovation, and now we make collaboration with the government. His President Fattah el-Sisi gave us a new office to work with support innovation and science, and we make a program after we realize that people inside Egypt is very much willing to support or to care about, especially youth, to care about football or movie stars. We mentioned to them, you will be movie stars, but in innovation. So we make a program, series programs. We live with the people inside home, inside their mother, with their mother, and see his life, and make about 22 series programs in TV. And the last winner will go for another thing. It's called Cairo Innovate. Exhibit from all people from around the world will come, and our small youth and people will present their idea. Our main target to make awareness about the importance of innovation. If the people understand why they need to innovate, why they need to get money from this idea, they will feel that they attached to innovation system. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just want to say that those who are innovators will innovate whether we like it or not. Innovation will happen whether we promote it or not. Innovation will bring in products whether we educate them towards innovation or not. But the challenge is that can we make innovation part of the educational system? Can education really make innovation a part of the thinking process in schools, in colleges, in universities? As a Vice Chancellor of a technical university, I have had made 4 or 5 steps that could promote that, and I would like to share them, but I do not have the time. but the basic point was that can the student, what we found is that the student is looking out for a critical problem to solve, and there are millions of problems which the surrounding people are facing, and he is not able to link up to that. So are we able to create an institution that is empathetic to the problems surrounding it, and then are hosting the students or promoting the students or mentoring the students to create solutions to them? Number one. And number two, which is the more important thing, is our research policy in any way able to create real solutions for the real problems of this particular surrounding? It's not only the problems of the humanity are common throughout the world. If we solve problems of ours, of traffic, of energy, of environment, of degradation of environment, of quality of education, and other things, that will be possible to transform the whole world and the whole humanity. We need to transform education in order to make innovation to happen, and innovation to disseminate, and innovation to be creating a new society which is not violent, which is not exploitative, and which is not trying to trample upon those who are not having the kind of resources and exposure to the things that they do not possess. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Rao? Yeah.
So I think continue with the previous speaker. I just wanted to share some of our experiences of running a specific course which is titled Inclusive Innovation. I think it's very relevant in this particular context. So this is basically a very unique course which we have been running for a couple of years now, where students working in multidisciplinary teams address the real-world problems through a technology-based solution. And a very important aspect of this particular course is that there has to be an inclusion dimension in the course. Whereas we have a lot of curricula which is actually trying to address the challenges or you can say problems of the rich, we thought let there be one course which basically addresses you can say the needs of the bottom billion, and that's why this particular course was introduced. So I think this course has a few special features, which probably one is that students have to go through an immersion in the real world to identify the need, and they go through a very systematic need validation process through data science and fieldwork, and then they co-create a solution sitting with the end users and in discussion with the stakeholders. So I would emphasize on co-creation, which is probably a very important. I think it was also mentioned that innovation does not happen just from one side. There's a lot of innovation which happens from the user side, which probably we need to recognize this thing. And interestingly, this course cannot be taught by one faculty. It has to be taught by a team of faculty consisting of engineering, social sciences, management, and design, which probably because you need all these inputs if you really want to address any inclusive innovation. We also provide students an option to continue with their innovation beyond the course through seed grants, in case if any of the teams would like to actually go and do a real-life prototype, etc. And we found that almost like 20% of the teams of the course, they come forward and actually go through a pilot stage and implementing in the real world. What I feel is that since we introduced this particular course, there has been kind of an unprecedented interest among the students. We are able to accommodate about 40 students in a semester, but we have like more than 100 students who apply for this particular course. That's also because our hands are tied in terms of the mentorship which we can give to a large number of teams which can be guided as this thing. What I personally feel learning from this particular experience is that our country, or in general the world, has millions of such problems which need to be addressed, and I look at each one of them as an opportunity. On the other hand, we also have millions of students who are actually hungry for such courses, and any opportunity to connect them to real world is something which they really value, particularly the people who are below 25 years, which probably you mentioned. And I think what we actually lack is an ecosystem which connects with the problems with the people who are ready to solve. And I think that's probably a very, very crucial. One way to go about is that probably we need such a course in every university.
In every university.
This thing, maybe hundreds and thousands. At least to start with, maybe central universities, if we can suggest it to the visitor, to probably implement such a course. And I think if that can happen, probably universities can be a good public spaces for innovation.
Thank you very much. I think there was a question on that side. Over there, yes, sir.
Actually, I and Professor Madhusudan, I'm Chakravarti. I teach at the IIT Bombay Design School. And in fact, Professor Madhusudan had mentioned all the things which are very, very critical. And we run a similar course called Innovation by Design, where students go and scout for problems in the field. They come up with problems with the old, problems with agriculture, problems in traffic, energy. But what's very interesting is while we did this, we have our MHRD, which is the mother organization for all central universities, has set up a Design Innovation Center Fund. So we use that fund to do prototyping, testing. So using that fund, we have an ecosystem inside our institute, because when students are working, they need hand-holding in multiple levels, both at the level of technology, prototype building, and field testing. So that hand-holding is helping us taking the leap and coming up with real-life problems, solutions, as well as prototypes, and the students, they graduate out with products in their hands. That's the type of experiment we did, and we've done it for the last 6 years with around 230 students in a class, bringing them into 10 groups, because we're using the strength of the students' groups to do large steps of work. But 10 of them in one group are able to easily do work. So that group working, that collaboration is really helping in taking this forward. So that's one very important aspect of how we can bring in a support ecosystem and collaborative innovation within the academic environment at the institutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Professor Tandon.
I personally believe that for education for inclusive innovation development, we have to think from a different perspective also. If you look from our education point of view, most of our education is analysis-based. We do not focus that much on synthesis. In fact, interestingly, most of the jobs are also in the domain of analytics. So we do a lot of cause-effect analysis. We are not inculcating the skills of idea development right from the beginning. In fact, we also offer a course, it's a 2-semester course on design and fabrication project, which is a compulsory course for all the undergraduates in their third year. And interestingly, we faced a lot of resistance initially. But now, looking at the outcomes of these things, the students have started realizing it, that the importance of that particular course, they have started enjoying it. And we also feel that the boys and the girls which are entering into the university system, they have a lot of ideas, but ultimately they are not able to take it to the final evaluation phase. And in fact, as evaluators, we are also not understanding the efforts which they have come. We are only looking at the success models. We are not taking care of the failures which are coming in between, because without failures they cannot lead to success also. So what I personally feel is that to have a better education system for inclusive innovation, the stakeholders must be given a feeling of ownership of that particular course, and they should be able to interact with the different segments of society, so that they have the good proper time to think and then react. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could we have maybe the intervention from Sharad Sabra from UNICEF? She's here.
Thank you. I think we consider innovation not as a job description, but as an attitude and approach. And so, which essentially means that attitude and approach needs to be built right from the school. College becomes just too late. We live in the largest democracy in the world. And democracy, Lincoln described it as of the people, by the people, for the people. And somehow everything that we do is for the people. There's very little of the people, by the people. And I think in innovation, if you really want to be creative and want to have solutions that are sustainable, they have to come from the people, and they have to be of the people and owned by the people. Otherwise, It's just a business model, and we are selling Nike shoes. Now, in the schools, we believe that a lot of what we do is teaching, and what we measure is teaching. We're not measuring what is learned. And so how about looking at the school system and the pedagogies and moving from teaching to discovery and learning and then solving things? How about looking at the science labs and the computer labs? And actually, they're just tools, converting them into discovery labs and creativity labs. And then how do you create access to information? And how do you connect these people with each other, these young people, so they can actually share ideas, they can collaborate, they can exchange, and they can help each other coming out with solutions, and then create opportunities where they can show, share, and generate some value out of it. We do some part of it with Srishti, with Professor Gupta, so we're quite happy with that, but I think we have to have a rethink, and I think design thinking has to be brought in. How do you bring innovation and the attitude of innovation within schools? Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I ask if Professor Shubha Ghosh is here? No.
So thank you. I bring a slightly different perspective. I'm a Fulbright scholar this year, and I'm visiting at the National Law University of Delhi, where I'm teaching a course on technology transfer law. And so I want to thank, first of all, Professor Gupta for inviting me and including me. And so I think it's useful to talk about legal education in this prospects. I think it's very important to have the training in the law for a number of reasons, and I'll focus on two. One is legal reform. And intellectual property is very important for developing this innovation ecosystem and to make sure that the laws are structured and applied in a way that do support the values that we've been discussing the past few hours. The idea of inclusiveness in terms of innovation, the idea that intellectual property is one part of the transfer of technology, the transfer of knowledge. I was very attuned to the distinction that was made by one of our speakers about the transactional focus versus a human needs focus. And one of the things about law that I think is useful is that it can marry those two or find a bridge between those two, especially when you think about legal education, working with understanding business models, understanding the way in which we can participate in legal reform. And just to give you a couple of examples in terms of my work here as a Fulbright scholar, I've become active in the relationship between intellectual property law and competition policy, which is a very important issue at the high levels in terms of the legislation and the agencies and so forth, but really does have some implication for how we develop systems of technology transfer that are not corporate dominated, that do become more inclusive. And so that's very important when you think about legal education. It's not just simply about learning how to work within existing institutions, but how to also restructure them based upon various types of very generally discussed policy type goals. And I think it's important when you're thinking about legal training that students understand their role as thinkers, that lawyers are creative individuals. I think I was speaking to one of our colleagues earlier today, and I think they pointed out that the two fields globally that are the least innovative are accounting and lawyering. And of course, we don't want accounting, as I mentioned, we don't want accounting to be creative. We don't like creative accountants, but lawyers, by definition, have to be creative because it is about institution building, especially in countries like India that are going through these types of reforms. And we don't want the policy issues, especially with intellectual property, to necessarily be dominated just by corporate interests or developed country interests and so forth. And there has been a lot of movement in the intellectual property area, what is more balanced, more grassroots and so forth. And we need to think about how to continue that. And as part of this training, and I'll finish very quickly, is to have the bridge between law and other fields. I teach at the University of Wisconsin in the area of intellectual property, and I'm moving to run a technology law center at Syracuse University in New York. And one of the things that's exciting about teaching in the law school is you get students from all throughout the university who understand that law
has some bearing on their life, but they want to understand how, and they also want to be able to master it so that they can affect it and move it towards policy change, as well as towards their own interests as innovators and creators.
Okay.
So that is my inputs, and thank you very much for including me.
If I may say so, sorry, yeah. I also want to say that I think that lawyers will be one of the most needed innovators in the data-driven society, all the question around privacy and data ownership. So I think lawyers will be very high in demand as innovative minds. Yeah. Okay, I think there's also another industry representative, Joe Trotter. Joe Trotter from BD Science. No, not here. No. Mr. Abhi Sen. Okay, for anyone, yeah, okay.
Yeah, perhaps if there are any other comments from anyone, please raise your hand. Go ahead. We have a few minutes left. Go ahead.
I'm Rajendra Jagdai. I represent Maharashtra State Innovation Council and also one of the Director of Science and Technology Entrepreneurs Park. We have worked a lot on entrepreneurship education as one of the DST mission, Department of Scientific Government of India. I was chairman of National Advisory Committee on Entrepreneurship in Education. And also we set up what is called as IEDCs, Innovative Entrepreneurship Development Centers. Through these various programs, we have seen huge talent and that results into development of product. And there are thousands of such products have been supported by government's programs, but they remain at the product level. Where it fails is taking products to market. And so there is an innovation, the productization is there, sizable, small-scale pilot is done, but it doesn't get scaled up. So we need to have a mechanism to support education system, because most of these entrepreneurs the innovators are with education system, to help them to do a sizable pilot, at least may not get money to go for commercial because of several problems in procurement policies, but at least our procurement policies can help to take innovations in the market on a sizable pilot scale. That will give a lot of encouragement and confidence to entrepreneurs and to innovate further. We have massive exhibitions happen which called diploma in exhibitions. And thousands of new such innovations, you can see they have potential to come to market, but nobody wants to take it further because they know they have no confidence they can make business out of it. So if that confidence is by suitable policies, if that confidence is given, then I can see a lot of products coming to the market. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was a comment in the corner.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd just like to make two comments. One was really to endorse the emphasis that we heard on a couple of speakers this afternoon, particularly about the human elements of innovation and the really crucial need to include that in discussions about innovation, the human elements, and then by reflection on that studies or analyses of innovation really need to include the social scientists, the psychologists, the sociologists, the educationalists, in order to get a fully rounded understanding of this whole fascinating but rather complicated process. And the second point I'd mention, which really comes just out of my experience at my university in Australia, where we've had some of our design students and engineering students go online collaboration with Honeybee Network innovators and supporters in India to do their student projects around that kind of collaboration. So although it can be around an issue from grassroots innovation in India, but Australian engineers and design students learn an enormous amount from that kind of collaboration. So I'd just like to put that on the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that's, I guess that concludes our discussion. Thanks for your engaging participation. I'll turn it over to Dr. Gupta if you want to make some comments.
Thank you very much. We have a very exciting session ahead. Our Honorable President will be here at 6:30. He will also be presenting the deputy's report, but listening to his advice for making the system, making the innovation ecosystem more inclusive. And we all are looking forward to that. I will hand over to Suresh to wind up this session.
So thank you very much, Chair and Co-Chair. We would like to acknowledge you and present a memento on behalf of the Honorable President.
And I request my colleague, Niranjan Sudhanshu, to please do this honor.
So a couple of announcements. We will break for tea for almost 20-25 minutes. We expect you to be here by 6:20. We need to vacate this room for security check and everything. So I seek your cooperation to please come back by 6:20. Thank you very much.